Trump must be panicking because he held a rally in Pennsylvania this morning and spent so much time on election lies. He even admits that those around him don't want him to be doing this, but he charges forward with it anyways. I continue to say, even though this election could go either way, if Trump loses, he has only himself to blame, because it seems he's doing everything to sabotage himself, putting emphasis in the final days on the very thing that pushes away voters. We saw in Pennsylvania, the gubernatorial race, where the MAGA candidate lost brutally against Josh Shapiro, the Democrat, because he was too extreme MAGA. He was an election denier. And so in Pennsylvania, the state that everything could come down to, Trump is reminding people of the toxicity of his movement and spending multiple minutes, I think 10 plus minutes after walking out on stage, choosing to forget everything that his aides had been begging of him, which is just don't get on the extreme MAGA election denier type stuff. Focus on the other things, the quote unquote policies, throws that out the window and does this. While you're watching this segment, please remember to click the subscribe button. We are now past 950,000 subscribers, which means we're in the actual home stretch to 1 million. Thank you so much to every one of you who has subscribed. If you haven't, again, it's not membership, it's not paid, it's just a free subscription on YouTube, which helps us grow.
Isn't this better than my speech? Isn't this? No, because honestly, somebody's got to talk about it. They say, sir, I'd rather have you not talk about it. We have a certain network. Oh, if you even mention the fact that there's cheating in elections, they turn you off. I mean, this is supposed to be one of our brave, very brave networks. I won't mention which, but you can imagine. You know.
Yeah, and it's no surprise that the network he's talking about, Fox News, did choose to cut out of this speech.
They just announced a fake poll. Hey, think of it. Right before the election, that I'm 3 points down. I'm not down in Iowa. I got $28 billion for the farmers. $28 billion.
All right, so there is former President Trump in Pennsylvania.
Before he gets too deep into it, imagine that. Imagine walking out on stage, crucial speech, 2 days before the election, and going, you know that one thing that he even admits in the first clip that his handlers, his staff members, his advisors have said, don't, when he goes, they say I shouldn't talk about this. It's his staff saying, don't talk about the election night, because then the final set of headlines, justifiably so, are going to be about how you reject the fundamentals with our democratic process, how you lie, and how when you get a sense that you could lose, you choose the lies over our democratic process. That is the best way to shoot yourself in the foot. So please, sir, don't do it, is what they're telling him. They're trying to save him from himself, but they can't, because he's choosing to push that advice aside, forget everything he knows about political strategy, and lean in to the lies, lean into the stuff that has given Democrats election after election in recent years and has caused toxic MAGA candidates like Carrie Lake to lose over and over again. Then you have Trump continuing on throughout these rants.
And I'm the only one that talks about it because everyone's afraid to damn talk about it. And then they accuse you of being a conspiracy theorist. He's a conspiracy. And they want to lock you up. They want to put you in jail. The ones that should be locked up are the ones that cheat on these horrible elections that we go through in our country. And I don't know what's going to happen, but for future elections, I won't be even a part of it. But you ought to damn well go to paper ballots. You ought to go to voter ID. And you ought to have the election over by 9 o'clock. I'm hearing now they're going to take weeks.
It's not going to take weeks. You might challenge it for weeks if you lose. It's not going to take weeks to get projections as to who won.
Can you imagine? They spend all this money on machines, and they're going to say, we may take an extra 12 days to determine. And what do you think happens during that 12 days? What do you think happens?
It won't take 12 days, but to answer your question, counting happens during the time when we're waiting for results. You've demonstrated, excuse me, absolutely no evidence that making sure we get the correct count means fraud is happening. Actually, it's the opposite. Making sure we're mindful of getting the correct count so that people can't go in and say, well, there's a discrepancy here, and so that means it must have been fraudulent, proves the legitimacy of our elections. And that's the end of that clip. We'll just keep charging through. Today, for whatever events she ends up holding, she hasn't had any yet, but we'll talk about Harris events as well. And what we looked at yesterday in the side-by-side between the two candidates' campaign is how there's very different messages. Harris proposing one of unity, getting asked sometimes in interviews, what if you lose? Will you accept the results? And she says yes, because she cares about this crazy thing called democracy. And she is able to both make an affirmative case for herself while also opposing Trump, while also not having to lie preemptively about the election to protect her fifis from a potential loss.
There's only one reason you don't want voter ID. There's only one reason, and that's to cheat. There is no other reason. There's no other reason. And they do cheat. Isn't this better than my speech?
And then that's into the part that we already saw. We do have voter ID. I guess he's talking about specific photo ID laws that we've talked about the repercussions of and that aren't evidentially backed based on the claims he uses to justify them. Then you have Trump saying he shouldn't have left after he lost the last election. What will that mean for if he loses this one?
But my world's favorite chart, done by the Border Patrol, it said we had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. We had such a great.
And remember that Trump has actually misled people about that chart, and the arrow pointing at when he left office, when things were really low in terms of border crossings because of the global pandemic and how the United States had it worse than so many other countries, in part because Trump's mishandling. So yes, people didn't want to enter the country, and migration had frozen in large part during that period of time. He never answers for how 2019 had higher border crossings than any time under Obama, because then that means clearly his policies weren't, I should say, yielding a trajectory that would lead one to believe they actually served as solutions. And then after the pandemic freeze, as things started to pick back up, we saw this huge spike as Trump was leaving office in border crossings. And the arrow that they put on that chart points before the spike, even though Trump was still in power as that spike trajectory had started. Then you have him actually, this is a repeat of the other clip. So he's mad at Fox News for not talking about the election lies when he says a certain network. Maybe it's because they had to pay $787.5 million for those very election lies. Here he calls the press bloodsuckers.
They're laughing at us. You know what? And if nothing comes out of this whole thing, it's going to teach you damn well better get a different system. And these bloodsuckers up there, they do nothing about it.
As enraging as it is to see him so blatantly and in an authoritarian fashion speaking about our press, and that following up him saying the government should come down hard on outlets he doesn't like, his wording, not mine, it actually should make us feel like, wow, imagine how, because of how bad this is, imagine how exciting it could be if we push him out of our conversation by winning in 2 days. There's a really exciting, hopeful element to clips like this, that we could never have to hear this stuff, at least in its relevance, ever again, if we defeat him on Tuesday. Then, after saying that it was so horrible that Biden later clarified this is not what he meant, but called Trump supporters garbage, which I disagree with such a characterization. But again, so does Biden. That's why he clarified it. And that's just proof that the left's rhetoric is so overboard. Trump calls the Democratic Party demonic.
This is a group of people, large group of people, larger than people think, but it's a very demonic party. It's become that way. The people aren't. The people, Democrats, regular Democrats aren't. Most of them agree with what I'm saying.
So if you're a Democrat, that's not what. If you're a Democrat who agrees with what he's saying, you're fine. But if you're a Democrat who agrees with what the demonic party says, well, now there's a problem.
But we do need people to say it, and we have to have it. And if it's not said, and then they're going to fight over it. They're going to call you a horrible person, and all of the things that they call you, conspiracy theorist. He's a conspiracy theorist. They don't tell you that they cheated. Think of it.
So the crowd largely uninterested in what he's saying. As you can tell there, when we covered the Harris rally, about every 10 seconds, the crowd's going, woo, yeah, yeah, to something that she's saying. At Trump rallies, long stretches of time pass by as he's just sort of talking about how and I don't like I would have won the last, like, if these were fair, I would win California. You know, a lot of people come across the border. Hannibal, they say I'm not a genius, but I am, because, you know, Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs. And the fact that I can remember Silence of the Lambs means that I am a genius smart. MIT and genetics means that I'm smart. You're not going to have a good baseball player and then they give birth to a bad baseball player. There is a good player, bad player. So when people say I'm not smart, that doesn't make sense, because my uncle, MIT. You ever heard of MIT? And the crowd just sort of sits there like, okay, we're waiting for the trans stuff, and don't let men and women sport. Yeah, we're back. Quite the experience at these rallies, huh? Then we knew we could have the most tragic bingo card ever, which is when Harris got into the race, things we predicted MAGA would describe her as. Trump, I don't know if I would have had it on my bingo card that he would question her race, but we knew that something racial in that sense was going to happen, and it did. Cross that off. We knew that people were going to question her citizenship. You saw that lady at the rally I talked to said, I think we need to check her papers. I knew her birth certificate was going to be circulated in some fashion, which happened. Trump posted on Truth Social saying, see, it proves she's not black, but he didn't understand that he was proving the opposite point. Embarrassing. The laugh thing, you know, oh, woman, laugh, you know, that sort of, we knew that was going to happen. And nasty, she was going to be described as that. You can cross that. We've had a bunch of bingos by now, but there was one box that wasn't checked yet. Are they going to be so blatant in using old, tired, vile tropes and describe her as lazy? And Trump has now crossed that off.
Nobody even knows, you know, we like to say, oh, she was, I don't know if she probably wasn't too involved in it, because she wasn't involved in anything. She's lazy as hell. But, you know, they all say, sir, make sure that you only say Kamala. Well, you know, it's probably him more. But she was there. If she was any good, she would have said Joe.
Yeah. This coming after he said repeatedly that she's low IQ, despite every single rational person comparing the communication intelligence and thoughtfulness of the two candidates and going, even if you like his policies or something, we can all agree Harris is probably technically, cerebrally, and intellectually more qualified to be president, as her life shows, her previous jobs, her resume, and her communication skills. And if you disagree with that, you're living in some sort of la-la land, thinking that Trump actually is able to exhibit high intelligence more effectively, even though I don't make such proclamations about people, but Trump keeps bringing that up. So now, after the stupid, dumb, low IQ line, he's trotting out the lazy line, making as transparent as he can his hateful nonsense. Then this.
A golden age, but that's hard to believe, because we have been so low. We've never been this low. The image of our country is terrible. It's terrible. It's a failed country. That's what it is. They view us as a nation in decline, but even worse, they view us as a failed country. We're going to turn it around. The image is so bad, what they've done to our country, this incompetent group of fools, what they've done to our country is so damn bad. And the media is so damn bad. It's unbelievable. Every inch of it.
You know, I did want to talk about briefly. Let me see if I can find this little graphic that I saw Elon Musk sharing around. You know, Elon Musk is now going full into the MAGA stuff. He said, legacy media election interference. And it's a graphic. I don't know where this comes from. Let's see. But assuming this is correct, it says the legacy media's election interference, which is quite the unbiased graphic. Harris coverage from quote unquote legacy media, 84% positive. Trump coverage, 89% negative, which interestingly, the amount of positive or negative coverage is irrelevant. Is the coverage factual? So yeah, I think 84% positive, if you want to describe it that way, as long as it's factual positive stories and then factual negative stories, sounds about right with the person, the record, and the campaign that Harris is running. 89% negative for Trump from mainstream liberal outlets also makes sense, because I don't know where you're finding the 11% positive to be honest for him, but it's mostly a negative story as he threatens people, as he divides people, and as he disparages our country every single day. Again, I'm sort of shocked they found more than 10% of stories to positively cover. But do you know what's so outrageous about this? MAGA desperately wants to be the victim in their own story, right? Everything is against us. Legacy media only covers negative stuff for Trump and positive stuff for Kamala, even though clearly they're bending over backwards to find 11% positive. But they never engage with the fact that, look at the three outlets that are listed there. I'm sure there's more than just those outlets included in this analysis. ABC, CBS, NBC. What they always do is they take all of the quote unquote left of center or centrist legacy outlets, and they say that's the media. And that block of outlets seems to favor Harris because the facts favor Harris. But leaving that aside, what they never engage with is bigger than any one of those outlets, more influential than any one of those outlets, more viewership being given to than any one of those outlets is Fox News. And it is the right-wing media echo chamber that is not included in this analysis. And Fox News does 100% positive coverage of Trump and 100% negative coverage of Harris. So once again, you see, if you draw a line, even though media is more complicated than this, and you say that left of center, you have all your legacy outlets, right of center, you have all the big right-wing outlets like Fox News, many of which get way better ratings than the liberal outlets because fear keeps people attached to the screen a lot better. And the pushing of lies that they do is really appealing to the electorate that they're speaking to. This is how our political landscape gets so wonky, because legacy liberal media goes, we're going to do everything we can to find 16% negative stories of Harris just to try to prove that we're unbiased. And right-wing media has never even held to that standard. They go, we're just going to pretend like Harris is Satan. Let's do it. And Trump's God. And so everything's all wonky. But still, despite the fact that the outlets they find to be more trustworthy are objectively more propagandistic for Trump, still MAGA is able to be the victim in their own story. Even though actually the media landscape favors right-wingers because they have a whole machine that's dedicated to helping them, whereas our machine, if you want to call it that, or the non-right-wing outlets, that machine does a lot of things to try to prove it's not biased, sometimes sacrificing facts to do so. And the panic is not just among Trump about the election. Steve Bannon is also ranting about how it's going to be stolen or how the last election was stolen. So, well, no.
Because the facts are on our side. Joe Biden never got 15 million votes, more votes than Barack Obama. Impossible. We didn't pick up net 12 House seats when we lost the presidential. Impossible.
Very possible. A bunch of people A bunch of people, when surveyed, said they voted for the Republican House candidates in the 2020 election, but voted against Trump because your guy's so toxic.
We didn't win 19 of the 20 bellwethers and lose the presidency. Impossible. You generated phony ballots of folks that don't exist, and that's why you ripped those envelopes and got them. If not, Rachel Maddow will be rubbing our nose and look at this thing, double it.
Can you finish like a single? What the heck was this mumbo jumbo? What? Finish the thought. What?
Of folks that don't exist, and that's why you ripped those envelopes and got them. If not,
and got him what?
Rachel Maddow will be rubbing our nose and look at this thing, double it in the envelope. She's there. That's her signature. She's right there. Boom, right there, right there. No, in the dark of night, you did this.
Okay. Oh my gosh. It's almost like Stephen K. Bannon. You've had 4 years to prove this and you haven't. It's almost like some of the videos, which we've now learned, that are fueling this election cycle's misinformation and election denialism preemptively, are coming from an interesting source.
Disinformation from foreign adversaries has become more and more of a threat. A fake video purportedly showing a Haitian immigrant voting multiple times in battleground Georgia has gone viral. Georgia's top election official Brad Raffensperger says it likely originated from Russia and has asked social media platforms to take it down. This comes after officials had to play defense on another fake video of a Pennsylvania voter ripping up ballots. Just not true. Joining us now is Jen Easterly, director of the cybersecurity.
Yeah, so essentially fake videos are being spread around of ballots being ripped up, or I guess a Haitian voting, which of course, and MAGA just, I don't care if it's fake, just fill it up. I love it. Give it to me. And Steve Bannon goes, impossible. Impossible for Biden to win whenever he won. And whenever every single investigation and recount and court case and audit bolster the fact that he won. And all the people in Trump's administration who were tasked to look into it verified that Biden won. It's impossible. Because he got more votes than Obama. Yeah, when there was record turnout in the whole election, it was a much more contentious election. And people were way more politically motivated because we were in the middle of a global crisis. That happens. The pandemic. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments. Is it possible that Trump just may be costing himself the election by spewing all this nonsense, reminding people of how much he is an extremist? Tell me in the comments and get the bonus show by clicking that join button below. And remember, election day and night coverage. You want to do it with us.
We have to show that the MAGA way will only ever end in electoral defeat.
Just completely off the rails, consistently, openly, brazenly, and blatantly insult. It is a sign of his own desperation.
So friends, if you're eligible voters, I want you to keep this in mind. Donald Trump will never be held accountable for anything he does if you give him back the keys to the White House. The stakes are too high.